Welcome to There's No Place Like Home, the radio show coming to you on WRXB 1590 AM and Pinellas County Connection TV. This program is presented to you as an opportunity to hear information that can help you fulfill the dream of owning your very own home. We also share information about upcoming special events and programs to help you enjoy the good life in Pinellas County, as well as other items of interest. The sponsor of this program is the Housing Finance Authority of Pinellas County, which offers the First-Time Homebuyers Program, your key to homeownership, helping people in Pinellas, Pasco, and Polk counties make their dreams of homeownership a reality. I'm Jane Merlin alongside Frank Bowman, your host for today's show. Frank, how are you today?
Jane, I'm doing very well today. How are you?
I also am doing well and very excited about today's topic and very special guest that we have today because she's going to tell us about the home buying process.
That is true. And this is a show that we like to bring folks at least once a year because we know there are every month there's new people who are considering buying a home, and the HFA is very much involved with helping people become homeowners, and understanding that process is a very important part of being able to accomplish that goal. So today's topic is about home buying and the process it takes to do that. It's one of the largest purchases you will ever make, and there's a lot to know about buying a home. It may also seem very confusing and very overwhelming, but we're here today to help it all make a lot of sense. There's a lot of great information ahead, so grab a piece of paper and a pen and take some notes. We will be joined in a moment by Karmen Lemburg, the Program Administrator with the Housing Finance Authority of Pinellas County. But before we get into today's topic, Jane, you have a message from our sponsor, the Housing Finance Authority of Pinellas County.
I do. Thank you, Frank. And the Housing Finance Authority, or HFA, is offering its first-time homebuyer program for individuals in Pinellas, Pasco, and Polk counties who have never owned a home or who have not owned a home in the last 3 years, or veterans. The HFA offers a low rate on its Home Key mortgage, which is a 30-year fixed rate. And if you need a little help with down payment and closing costs, they can help you with that also with the Home Key second mortgage. And again, that's also available in Pinellas, Pasco, and Polk counties. To get your key to homeownership, call 727-464-8210 or visit the website at pinellascounty.org/community/HFA. And to reach us for more information or comments about the show, you can call us at that same number. Again, that's 727-464-8210, or send us an email at housingfinanceauthority@pinellascounty.org. You can also watch past shows by logging onto the website, and you can also watch us on YouTube. And Frank, that First-Time Homebuyer Program is an excellent opportunity for those who might be thinking about buying a home, and the interest rate right now is very good, as well as the down payment assistance, which oftentimes is what prevents people from being able to get into their home.
That's very true, and both of those products combined are what the Housing Finance Authority has been specializing in years. Mm-hmm. I know there's been a lot of media discussion about interest rates going up, and that is true, but the rates available through the Housing Finance Authority mortgage program are still some of the best available.
It really is. Now, you do have to understand that rates do fluctuate, so you want to check frequently to see what the interest rates are doing, but as you say right now, for folks watching, this might be a really good time to make that investment.
Excellent. Well, at this time, it's our pleasure to welcome Karmen Lemburg, who's the Program Administrator for the Housing Finance Authority of Pinellas County. Karmen has been with the HFA for 6 years and has lots of experience with the lending industry and the home buying process. She has been a loan originator, underwriter, and a mortgage broker. Her knowledge and experience is very valuable to all of us. She's a returning guest, and we are pleased to welcome her back to There's No Place Like Home. Thanks for joining us again, Karmen.
Oh, thanks, you guys. You know, this is my most favorite show to come and be on with you because this is something that's near and dear to my heart.
And hopefully the listeners will realize that's a very true statement because your enthusiasm for helping people has always really impressed us, so we appreciate that.
Thanks.
Buying a home is probably the most important and the most expensive purchase one can make. It can also be a confusing time with so much to consider and lots of details and paperwork. What's the first step for anyone listening who's thinking about buying a home?
first thing I recommend for people is to really sit down and analyze their wants and needs for a new home. Think about, do you need 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, how many bathrooms, how many, stalls in the garage, and where you want to live. Maybe take a look and see what houses are running in that area. Take a look at your finances. Run through and see what are things that you can get rid of in your budget, what things you have to have in your budget. Understand your budget.
So you might really have to make a lifestyle change to make this happen.
You might, depending on what you're doing now. Owning a home is a lot different than renting, and you need to be prepared to make some changes to accommodate that.
So people really need to have a sense of what they want, which is, of course, we all would like to drive around in a Lamborghini or something, but the other part of that is what can we reasonably afford?
Correct.
And matching up our wants with our ability to purchase and selecting a location. You mentioned that there's lots of things to understand in this process, and there are a number of free homebuyer education workshops out there offered by Pinellas County. Tell us about the classes and what folks will learn in those.
Those classes are so important to first-time home buyers. They're going to actually help people understand their budget, how to analyze their budget. Going to take them through the process so they understand what they're going to be facing when they go through the process. It is a daunting process, and if you don't have any preparation for it, you're probably going to be more stressed out than you need to be. Professionals are there to help you, but if you have knowledge of what's going to go on, that's going to help you prepare yourself. They're going to help you also better understand the budgeting, the household budgeting process, and they're also going to help you understand the paperwork that you're going to need to be ready to provide to your lender to get your loan and be pre-qualified.
So these classes are not for people who've made the decision, I'm buying a home next month. These classes are really for people who are just wondering, should I be considering buying a home? This class will give you all the information you need to help make that important decision.
I think it's valuable in both cases. I think it's more valuable for those who are just starting that decision-making process. With the economy the way it is, and rates are still, even though they're going up, they are at historical lows. We're seeing rates out there right now at 4.25%. That is fabulous, fabulous. And for those people who have thought about it for a long time and are just now getting ready to get in the market, these classes are very helpful, as well as, in our case, mandatory. It's necessary for you to take that class in order to participate in our program. They're going to give you a certificate, and that certificate's good for a year.
And I understand that homebuyer training certificate is also important for lenders anywhere, whether you're going through our program or anywhere else.
That's very true. Lenders like to know that you are somewhat familiar with some of the things that are taught in these classes, and we give them through the Housing Finance Authority. We have on the website other entities that provide these classes, plus you can go right onto HUD.gov and find classes throughout the state. If you're just visiting this area today and happen to catch the radio show, everything I'm telling you is transportable anywhere in the country. Log on to HUD.gov wherever you live. It'll tell you where the homebuyer classes are.
And how would people go about finding classes here in Pinellas?
They can go onto our website, which of course is pinellascounty.org/HFA. /community/HFA, and it has on there for home buyers, and under there it'll say home buyer classes. They can also reach us at that 727-464-8210. We'd be happy to assist them through the website or tell them, what classes are being held where.
Okay, and I guess it's important to emphasize that the courses that we're promoting are all HUD certified.
Correct.
And meet the criteria of our loans and other lenders, and they're all entirely free.
Exactly. Free is very good.
And what's the time frame someone has to commit for a class?
8 hours.
Is that usually in one day, or is it they have?
They have both.
Okay.
They offer, many places offer for an 8-hour, like on a Saturday, and there are some places that are splitting it up into 4 hours over 2 nights, so that you can do it during the week and, maybe leave the kids with somebody, but then only be out of the house for 4 hours after work.
And of course, it is very important for if you have a significant other that both partners who are going to be involved in the home purchasing process attend these classes.
Yes, both people need to go through the class.
I think one of the important things to mention, too, is that through the course of getting the information at the classes, somebody might decide, you know what, maybe homeownership is not for me.
And that has happened because, again, as I mentioned earlier, renting and owning a home are two very, very different things. When you're a renter, something breaks in the house, well, you just call up the landlord. Hey, the water heater went out. Come over here and fix it. Refrigerator broke. Come over here and fix it. When you own your own home, these are responsibilities that you must take care of. The water heater goes out, you have to go out and buy that new water heater. The refrigerator, you have to take care of that home inside and out. That's the yard work, that's exterior painting, windows, roof, everything. You have to maintain your investment. And people need to understand this is truly a lifetime investment. You take care of your investment and it's going to grow and do well for you. You neglect your investment and it's not going to do well for you.
I think that's a really important point, and also speaks to what we talked about a little bit earlier in terms of a possible lifestyle change. Because if you are used to calling the landlord for an issue, now all of a sudden it's the person in the mirror who is
You're
actually
calling.
yeah. So
and
it
that
can
speaks
be
to the budget too, because now you need to make sure that you have a savings account or you have money, so if something goes wrong, you have money to repair. Water heaters, if you're installing them themselves, is easily going to run you, $350 to $400. If you're having a plumber install it, hello, you're looking double that.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be aware of those things and be prepared for those things.
And for those of us who don't have experience doing those kinds of things, it's often better to call the professionals in.
Exactly.
And some of the components of that home buyer training is about maintenance and preparing a budget or maintaining a budget that allows you to have reserves to deal with emergencies. Little things like, you mentioned the outside landscape maintenance. If you've been a renter for a long time, chances are that's been taken care of for you. When you become the homeowner, you either need to arrange to take care of that yourself or include enough money in your budget to pay for somebody to do that.
Exactly. And those expenses add up. Typically you pay somebody to come once a week anywhere from $20 to $40 to mow and edge and rake your yard. Whereas you could maybe go and buy a lawnmower and an edger and a trimmer and maybe spend $1,000 on everything and do that yourself for several years. But maybe you don't have the time. Mm-hmm. Maybe you feel your time is better spent with your children doing other things. So you have to weigh all of that when you look at your budget and your lifestyle change.
Very good points. So I've taken the class and I've got my certificate. What realistically should my next step be?
I always tell people they should go to a lender and get pre-qualified so that they know and understand how much of a house they can qualify for. And when qualifying for a house, it is not just your principal and interest. You also have to put into escrow for your real estate taxes and for your homeowner's insurance. And so that's all taken into account, kind of a basic number when you go to speak to your lender. Now, they're going to give you a round number. Like they're going to tell you, okay, you can go up to $1,200 a month, and that's what you can afford. Now, that includes your escrows for taxes and insurance. And the taxes and insurance are very, very different from house to house. And you have to do some research on that and work with your insurance people and get quotes on each house you're looking at. You can go to the county website, the property appraiser website, and look up what the current taxes are on a home, keeping in mind that that home may have been owned for several years and be on a Save Our Homes and not reflect the true amount of taxes that you're going to have. And you also have to consider one more important thing. Even though your principal and interest is not going to go up every year, you can guarantee your taxes and your insurance will. And you need to allow that. So if the bank says you can qualify for a $1,200 a month payment, you might want to dial that back some to allow for next year's increases.
Well, and not only that, but allowing for some of the other things that are important, such as the maintenance that you mentioned earlier, and having a savings account. for those unanticipated expenses that may come up.
Exactly. And when I went through and bought my house here in Florida 3 years ago, the bank gave me the number I could qualify for, but I was not comfortable with that number because I had already done my budget and I knew what I felt was my maximum I wanted to pay for everything. And so I stuck to my budget, not the bank's budget, mine. And so you need to be aware of that and remember this is your life, you're in charge, and you need to make these decisions because you certainly do not want to be in a home that you've worked so hard to get for a couple years and then lose it.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that people might be wondering is how to find the best lender for them. How do you go about finding the right lender?
Several things. First of all, if you're going to go through our program, you need to look at our website and see our lenders. But what I would also do is talk to your friends, your family, your co-workers. Find out who they dealt with as a lender and how they felt about them. And that's usually my best place to start because if your brother just bought a house and his lender, he was very happy with him, felt comfortable with him, felt he was honest, I would certainly look to that lender first and see what they can do for you, what they can find for you, and start with someone who has some sort of experience with somebody you know.
And are there certain questions that we should be asking the lenders before we make a commitment to work with them?
First off, also always remember that if down the road you don't like your lender, you can just fire them and get a new one. You never have to stay with a lender if something goes wrong. I always like to ask lenders about any fees they have, how they work, what their turnaround time is. Being in the business, know to ask all these questions. And that's why I try to tell people to ask this. For turnaround time, your average turnaround time right now, once you get the contract on the home, you are still looking about 45 days before you actually can close on the home. And so that's normal. But if they're starting to tell you 60, 85, 90 days down the road, you don't want to work with these people. That means something's not right. If they haven't been in business very long, there's a lot of brokers out there, and I was a broker myself, so I'm not putting brokers down, but there's a lot of brokers out there that are fly-by-night. They pop up, oh, yeah, I just opened my office a month ago. Come on down. Ask a lot of questions. Research that person. Go on the internet, plug in their name, plug in the name of their company. Everybody has to be licensed nationally now to do a home loan. Make sure they have all their licenses in place before you get too far down the road. And you'll find that most people that are doing this are compliant now, but you got to look out for yourself.
Karmen, I want to go back to something that you spoke about just a moment ago. You talked about asking about fees. What are some red flags people need to be aware of when discussing lender fees?
That's a good question. If they're going to tell you that they have a processing fee of $500 and an underwriting fee of $1,000, and they're going to ask you for a whole bunch of stuff up front, you need to look seriously for a different lender.
Okay, and of course that's one you're looking to see how much you're qualifying for. You can actually check with several lenders,
yes,
and become exposed and get familiar with them.
And ask the questions before they pull your credit.
Okay.
Good point.
Yes, very much.
And why is that?
Too many pulls on your credit are going to drop your credit score. Most programs out there right now have a minimum requirement of a 640 credit score in order to qualify for a loan. And each pull on your credit can lower your credit up to 10 points.
Now, that's something that I never even realized, and it's something that hopefully the folks out there will pay attention to. And is it advantageous to know your credit score before you?
Yes.
Or if you go to one of these companies that say, we'll tell you your credit score, is that essentially going to affect your score too?
Yes. Now, there's supposedly a lot of free sites out there that you can go and get your credit from. And I recommend people do that up front in the beginning of their process because that's going to show you if there's anything bad on your credit. And you can start correcting bad things before you even get into this process. All
right. Well, there's so much to talk about here, and we really need to kind of hit the high points. What about using a realtor?
Realtors are so important. There's just too many legal things involved. And unless you're an attorney and a real estate attorney, I recommend everybody use a realtor. Shop for your realtor the same way you shop for your banker. And remember, if you start working with your realtor and you're not compatible, move on. Move on. Find somebody who's going to work with you. If you're a very needy person and you need somebody to do a lot for you, find somebody who's going to cater to you. If you're an independent person like I am, they gave me sign-ons to a site that gave me full access to the MLS so I could do all my own research. I did drive-bys on the houses. If I liked them, then I called a realtor to show them to me. A lot of people aren't as independent as I am. They want the realtor to do the research. They want the realtor to set up everything. And so you have to get what's right for you, and you have no obligation to stay with them if they aren't working for you.
That's true. They're going to make a fee for helping you, and just like anything else, any service we purchase, we need to be comfortable with the person providing the service and confident that they're giving us the best possible level of service.
Exactly.
All right. In your observations, what are some of the mistakes that people make during the home buying process?
Biggest mistakes people make is right at the end. They've been approved for the loan. They've got the contract on the house. They're nearing closing. All of a sudden, they go crazy. They go out and start buying a whole bunch of stuff for the house, putting it on credit cards. Some people go out and buy a car. They totally mess up their credit. Right before closing, several things are going to happen. I'm talking to 2 and 3 days before closing. They're going to re-verify your credit. They're going to re-verify your employment, and they're going to re-verify your bank balances to make sure all that is the same as when it was. If any of that has changed, you could literally lose your home before you even get into it. Don't make any major purchases. Keep as much money in your savings account as you can, and just hold on anything until you get closed on that house and it's yours. Next big thing is job changes. If there is any way to avoid a job change during this process, once you've got your contract and you've got your pre-approval, try not to do that. Sometimes an offer comes along you have to accept because it's a better job, same field. That is perfectly acceptable. But don't just all of a sudden get mad at your boss one day and say, oh, I'm out of here, and think everything's going to go on, because that is going to kill your deal right there.
That's good information.
Very, very good information. Now, let's talk a little bit about a home inspection. You know, we hear about these, but are they really necessary?
Yes. I'll give you a good example. On a home that I was looking at buying myself when I first came down here, on the surface it looked really good. Somebody had coached these people very well on how to get this house ready for sale. They had painted over a lot of stuff, and they had gone through and put new face plates on all the outlets. Well, when the inspector came through, he realized that all the wiring was wrong in the house. We went outside, and they had painted the cracks in the foundation of the home. On the cinder block houses, if the crack follows the block, that's fine. But if it goes diagonally across the block, run away. These cracks went diagonally across the block. The next thing he did was he reached up, and the soffits looked fine to me. He put his hand up there and touched them, and his hand went right through the soffits. Then he goes up on the roof. I thought the roof looked good. It was a tile roof. It looked in good shape. Oh, no. He said it had to be replaced immediately. I canceled the contract on the house. Yes, I paid that man $300, but he saved me thousands.
Yeah, that's really an important point, because they may also find some things that are not of a significance right now, but in the future may be something that you have to think about replacing, and it might be such a good deal that it may be worthwhile for you to pursue that. So
exactly,
very, very, very good. Now, in addition to a mortgage, you also have to plan for home insurance. Talk to us briefly about home insurance and what we need to be mindful of.
Be very mindful of your deductibles. Now, in our program, we have minimum requirements. Some lenders don't, but you do need to talk to your lender and find out if their bank has minimum requirements, or if the program they're running through with you, such as ours, has minimum requirements. We don't let your deductible for hurricanes be any higher than $2,000. That is going to drive up your annual insurance. However, if a hurricane hits, do you really want to be out of pocket more than $2,000 to replace your home? Some people try to get $5,000 and $10,000 deductibles. That just doesn't work. Where are you going to find $5,000 to $10,000 to rebuild your home?
And I would suggest that this be a conversation you have before you put a contract on a house.
I think so.
Because I think it's these issues and how much is insurance going to be and what's it going to cover are really a critical decision point in deciding to become a homeowner or not, or that specific house. Because insurance costs will differ from property to property.
And it's a huge expense. I mean, here in Florida, you should not be surprised at all to pay anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a year for your homeowner's insurance on just an average home.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's been so much in the news of late on flood insurance and the impacts that is having on homeowners. And so if you do your homework ahead of time and find out what that cost is going to be on that particular home, you may end up deciding that you're going to have to walk away from that home.
Precisely. And that's why it's so important to get these professionals lined up and start your conversations at the beginning of this process so you don't find a home, fall in love with it, and then, oops, no.
And the changes in the cost of flood insurance are really critical. There was stuff in the media recently. Folks bought a house they could afford. It was a high-end house, was on the canal, and they ended up finding out after they closed on the house that their insurance bill was going to go up to $44,000 a year. And that, of course, for most folks, that would make home buying impossible.
Exactly.
And so the flood insurance issue is one that folks really need to pay attention to now in selecting a new home if they're moving towards becoming a home buyer.
And the one thing I'll speak to that is if you are technical in computer savvy, go online to the FEMA maps and find out what areas FEMA has designated as high-risk areas. These are not the same as the evacuation zones on the Pinellas County website. Go on to FEMA and look in the area where you want to live and see what they have said is the high-risk area. That's where your higher insurance is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of FEMA, you just triggered something in my mind, and that is to make sure that, and this is true even if you're renting, make sure you have a hurricane preparedness plan or an emergency plan.
Exactly. Either way, renter or homeowner, you have to have a plan. Always make sure that you have all your most important records. I keep mine in red files. In the very front of my file cabinet, I have a waterproof file box, if you will. Then all I have to do is all the most important things in those red file folders pop right out, go right in that waterproof box. Boom, it's on wheels. I wheel it out to the car, put it in the car, and that way I have my most important things I can't live without, and that includes the insurance papers on the house and all of my paperwork on the house, and I have that with me. Which brings to mind one more quick thing I want to tell people. When you go to closing, you're going to be getting a huge packet of papers from the title company. You must keep those for as long as you own the home, because some of those papers you're going to need when you sell your home, and the first year you file your taxes after you buy that home, you also need some of those papers out of that file. So create a file and keep that whole packet of papers you get at closing in that file and don't lose them.
That is so important, because there is nothing worse than needing those papers and not being able to put your hands on them readily.
Exactly.
Well, it's happened again. Every time we get into this topic, we realize we should be here for an hour and a half instead of our regular half-hour show. Let's quickly give folks, because all the information we're providing today is provided through these homebuyer training programs.
Exactly.
Repeat that contact information for those real quickly.
Easiest is to call us, 727-464-8210. Go on to our website at pinellascounty.org/community/HFA.
All right. Well, thank you. And unfortunately, we are out of time. A big thanks to our guest, Karmen Lemburg, with the Housing Finance Authority of Pinellas County. Also, we'd like to thank Pinellas County Communications Department for helping to produce this program. And, of course, our friends at WRXB 1590 AM radio. Be sure to join us next month for another informative discussion. I'm Frank Bowman.
And I'm Jane Merlin.
Thanks for tuning in. And remember,
there's no place like home.